guys, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Keep in mind, guys, this is an open conversation. This is meant to be interactive. So it should not just be me and Miss Laura talking. We want you guys to ask questions, join in, because that's what makes these type of conversations so much better. And let me turn the camera. I am going to introduce you guys to the awesome Miss Laura Davis Perry. Did I get it right? Davis Perry?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm going to flip the camera. Isn't she beautiful, everyone?
Oh, thank you.
And you guys, she is in the chat as well. So please feel free to give her a follow. She will be able to see the comments and follow along with that as well. So again, if you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to ask. We're going to try to address every single question that we can during this chat. And of course, if there's something that needs to be handled or addressed separately or individually, we'll make a note of that and follow up. But yeah, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Miss Laura, would you like to introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. I am Laura Davis Perry. I am the founder of Conquering Walls Counseling Agency, LLC, here in Columbus, Ohio. We provide mental health services and other services to individuals that are in need in the Columbus area. I am a master's level social worker with supervision allowances, and I'm also a doctoral student right now working on my dissertation for my doctorate in social work. Can't get it out. I'm just happy to be here today. I love the title, self-care. I'm all about self-care. We really have to do that. And because it is the month where we need to be more aware for our mental health, I think this is an appropriate conversation to have today. So Shantae, I thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you so much for being here. We'll kind of jump right in with some questions. My first question would be more so to you, and it's more of a personal question, I guess. What is your why? Why did you decide to go into this field?
As a child, I always loved helping people. Very curious about the mind and watching people's behavior. That was something that I always did, just always analytical, analyzing everything. If you talk to people, they always talk about me. I have to know all the questions, the answers to all the things, and then try to solve it. I've always been one that tried to solve things for other people. And I got joy from it. And I can say that honestly, I got joy from helping others. I tried other, avenues for career choices, and they did not work out for me. My top one was being a behavioral analyst for the FBI. But because of my claustrophobia and some other anxieties that I have, I couldn't do that. So I had to find something else. And I started working with children first. Then I worked with the DD population several years ago. And then I went back to children again. And now I work with children and their families, because I believe that we have to look at the whole situation and not just the one person or the one entity in that process. So I love it. I love being able to help people look at life differently and see things in a more positive way, because we all have stuff going on. We all are living life. Like I'm a social worker, but I'm also a human being. And when I say that, I mean I'm a human living life, going through things just like everybody else. So being able to help people through those things and having some of the experiences that I've had over life is really something that is fulfilling for me.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the importance of mental health and awareness. Mm-hmm. What are some things that I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Kind of, I guess, what are some things that you see being areas, like areas of importance, primarily, I guess, within the BIPOC community?
We have all the stigmas that existed for years in the BIPOC community. The belief that, what happens in this house stays in this house. And that's a phrase that I hate with all the passion that I can give it.
Right.
Because behind that statement is a lot of trauma, is a lot of hurt and pain and things that are hidden. And, things that are hidden, a lot of times they're not good. And so, the BIPOC community has suffered for a long time because we don't talk to other people or try to find different alternatives for it. We just do things the way we've always known them. And I feel like, therapy was definitely one of those things. I remember, my family, nobody going to therapy means you're crazy,
Right.
those kinds of things. And I would have never thought that I would be a therapist plus seeing a therapist, because I have a therapist too, and I run to her office every Friday morning. But I just believe that in our community, more awareness is important. We really need to understand what this process is. There's no magic bullet. You come in on the first day, you don't leave changed. There's a lot of hard work that goes into this whole process. I tell my clients a lot of times, if I'm working harder than you, then something's wrong with this picture. So understanding that having a conversation with someone does not mean that you're crazy. It just means that you need to process this and see things a little differently than you've been looking at it, to help you to choose a better path. Everybody could use a counselor. I believe everyone should be talking to someone.
Absolutely. So what about when, people who have tried therapy or tried certain levels of therapy and haven't gotten success?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And I believe that my belief about therapy is that it is a profession of personalities, right? You're meeting this person, you're telling them all this really personal information about you. This is a relationship that you're developing. It's not just you come, like you go to your doctor, you develop a relationship with your medical doctor too, right? So it has to be someone that you like, because the intimacy of the relationship is a little different than just going to the regular doctor. Like you're telling real stuff that you wouldn't share with that some people wouldn't share with anyone, right? So you have to have someone that you connect with. And everybody doesn't connect with everybody. I tell people on the first appointment, I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea. So if you feel like there's something going on that's not working, let your therapist know instead of just quitting, because you came to that session looking for something. And if they can't give it to you, they ought to be, and I say ought to be, or should be, I don't like to use the word should, but they should be willing to help you to find that with someone else if they can't give it to you. And that's the motto that I go by, because when people have bad experiences with therapy, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was always them or always the therapist. It might have just been the relationship wasn't the good, and the way that person dealt with how they provided therapy wasn't for them.
Right.
So don't give up. Some people go through 3 or 4 therapists before they find the right one. And I believe that, making sure that you come looking for services, you come looking for help, we're supposed to help you find what you need. So that's how I look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's also important when people are honest with why they're there, because, sometimes I think people seek, therapy or treatment, but they're not willing to be honest about what it is that they want. And so at that point, I think that a lot of times we don't get what we want out of it because we're not putting what we need to into it.
And when people come into therapy, there's something going on. They may not feel, it may, how do I say, feel that they can be vulnerable enough to share everything. It's a process that takes time. So that first session, they may not share things, but as you get deeper into the relationship, then you will discover more. Like I have clients now that I've been seeing for years, and I'm still discovering things about them that they did not mention in the beginning, but we've worked on what needed to be worked on as the process moved forward. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And as you develop that, it's about that relationship too. It's about them feeling comfortable enough to open up about those things. Because I could be talking to someone and they'll be telling me this and they're like, well, you know what? This happened to me or that happened to me. And, they didn't share it to me before, but I don't ask them, well, why didn't you share that before? We could have been, no. I feel like everything happens and comes out when and how it's supposed to. And if we could keep our minds on that and move forward with that, and just, if they tell you something that probably could have been very important in the beginning, well, worrying about what didn't happen back then is not going to change anything. Right. We have to stay focused on now. What's happening in this moment right now, and how can we move forward differently to address this issue?
Absolutely. Yeah, I always say, like, trust the process. Things always look messy in the beginning, and then sometimes I think we open doors and then we don't like that talk. Like, we don't like that conversation. So we shut that down, and we don't realize that we're kind of closing the door to ourselves. It's like, why are we here? Why have I spent, X amount of sessions with this person and I'm not willing to truly open up? But I'm quick to run and tell, my girlfriend something, knowing that person could be messy and put all your business out there, but you can't be comfortable to tell that same story to a licensed trained professional who by law can't discuss this with anybody. So that ought to be your best friend.
And that's what I tell people too. Look, consider me your best friend that you can tell everything you can pull everything out your pocket, all the bones. You can throw all the bones on the table. I can't say nothing to nobody because I ain't trying to give you everything that I don't work hard for.
Absolutely.
So this is a closed, non-judgmental interaction, because I know for me and the people that I know, judgment is not a part of this process. You don't come to us to be judged. You come to us to be helped. I can't judge nobody, no way, because you don't know what I did last night. Right. So I just really don't, I want people need to understand that is a very private. Therapy is private. Mm-hmm. The only person that we could potentially talk about with it is our therapy partner that we process our cases about, and that's it. And they're bound by the same rules that we are. So no one knows what happens in our situation. Even when I'm doing leave paperwork for people and filling out stuff, and these insurance companies are asking for information, I don't give them notes. I don't give them what you say. I talk about the theme of what we talked about, but what you personally said and what we're dealing with, no, we don't disclose. We can't disclose that to anyone. You're in a very private place, and whatever you say stays there. It's like Vegas. Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Whatever happens in therapy stays in therapy.
Absolutely.
And that's how it is.
Absolutely. So there was a comment in the chat. Lady Blue said that her daughter sought therapy, but they kept changing her therapist. So her daughter got tired of telling her story and stopped going.
Mm-hmm. I understand that. That happens a lot in agencies. It's about finding that right fit for you, though. I try to make sure that we don't, at my agency, I can only speak for what I'm doing, because I used to work for a big agency too, and there was a lot of change all the time, people switching jobs or switching departments and different stuff like that, and that can be very disheartening. So you have to really look for and advocate for your child, like, okay, look, this is what we came here for, and what you're doing is not a good continuum of care for her. Speak up about what you're feeling, because they're supposed to be servicing you the way that you need, not you servicing them. Having that continuum of care is important. And I do agree, switching therapists like that is not a good thing.
So I'm going to jump ahead in our questions because we are talking about, like she mentioned, her daughter's therapy. What do you think, when do you think is the appropriate time to, I guess, start these sort of conversations, like with our children and our loved ones? Like, how early should these type of talks start taking place?
As early as they can understand it. Okay. And the moment that you see something going on, don't wait. If you think something is going on, it probably is. Because we have intuition, we have these feelings, we have these inklings about things, and depending upon what you believe, we are guided on certain things. That's what people feel. So, I feel like the sooner you address it, the better. As soon as you know something is happening. like I can speak personally with my daughter. There were some things that happened in our family and they really affected her, and she started shutting down. And she was very talkative. Like, she and I were close. We talked all the time. But even as a therapist, she would not talk to me, and I could not figure out how to get her to do it. It's kind of like you do it better for somebody else's, but when it comes to your own, it's not the same. And so, I started her into therapy shortly after seeing that situation. I didn't even need to talk to her about it. I wanted her to be able to express herself with someone else, and it was the best thing I could have ever done. So,
yeah, I know.
Being able to make sure that you're aware of these things that are going on with you, being in tune with yourself, in tune with your family.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I know for me personally, I started my son, I think he was about 3 or 4. Just because of, I discuss this often. My son's adopted. And so that in itself, transitioning from one family to a new family, I felt was a big deal. And getting him to be able to understand that, the things that he was going to go through in school being adopted, and kids are cruel, so there were going to be things that kids said, things like that, and I wanted him to be able to understand that his feelings were valid, and how to begin to advocate for himself, because it was going to be a long road, dealing with how he felt surrounding everything. So I contrary to how I was raised, as far as, people not really promoting therapy like that, I knew that it was important. And so once he was talking, we started doing therapy. And of course, with children, they do a lot of things like sand therapy and role playing.
Play therapy, things like that.
But that was like an amazing experience for me, because seeing a 3-year-old doing sand therapy and acting out different scenes and stuff like that, it was amazing to me, like the things that they do for kids. So I know that some people don't think that therapy is beneficial for children, but it really is. And he learned a lot of coping skills to deal with his aggression and his frustrations, because kids don't really know how to express themselves, right? Like, we teach them how to express themselves, and sometimes we're not the best teachers.
Right.
Because they
model what they see.
Exactly. And so that was a big takeaway that I learned, because in addition to him being in therapy, I was required to come, and we also had to have a family therapy, because it was not just his job, it was my job as well. And so I had to learn those same coping skills that he did. And I had to learn that everything I did influenced how he did things. And so, a big thing, when our kids do something and we yell at them because they did something wrong. When my son was doing the sand therapy, he was yelling at the toys. And it was kind of an epiphany for me, and it was like me holding myself accountable again for saying that, sometimes the things that I do causes him to do the things that he does. So sometimes I think the big picture for that was me seeing that what I put out, what I put out into the world, I get back. So I think that's where I started learning to be more accountable for myself.
And one thing, you said something very early on in that conversation, or that piece that you were just speaking about. You said that something about validating feelings. That's so important. Letting the people that we communicate know that, their feelings are valid. If somebody tells you, well, I feel this way, I hear one of the biggest mistakes that we can make is saying, no, you don't.
Right.
Or you shouldn't feel that way. How can you tell somebody what they feel or how they should feel? It's their experience that they're speaking from, not yours. So you have to give them a chance to express themselves, whether you agree with it or not.
Right.
If your child tells you they feel a certain way, they probably do feel that way, more than likely, because that's how they experience it. And so as parents, it's our job to help them to understand that feeling, no matter what we feel about it, right? So, and we make that mistakes in a lot of relationships. I know I have in the past. invalidating other people's feelings because I didn't believe what they said or I didn't feel the same way that they felt. You can't tell somebody how they feel. If someone tells you that they feel this way, whether you agree with it or not, that's their experience, that's their feeling, and you just have to agree. You just have to let it go and let it be what it is, right?
Exactly.
And then you talked about, your son modeling your behavior. Children do that. They're not born. One of the things that I believe is that children are not born mean. They're not born crass. They're not born being smart asses. They're not born being all those things. They learn that stuff.
Absolutely.
They watch others. They watch adults. They pick up on the behaviors that other people are doing, and that's when they do it. Like I watch a lot of, seeing these videos on TikTok and YouTube and all this kind of stuff of kids doing all this stuff. They didn't come out with that. They got that from somewhere. So we have to be very mindful of what we do and say and how we act in front of them. A lot of parents come into session talking about this and that going on in the family and thinking that their children don't know. And then the child come right in the room and tell me before I can even begin talking to them. So children hear. They are very observant. They know those things that y'all think y'all keep secret, that you only talk about in your room. Somehow they know. So you have to make sure that you're paying attention to all of that in your household.
Absolutely. So with that and talking about the accountability, I know that a common thing that you hear people talk about now is triggers, right? All of a sudden, everybody wants to say, this triggers me. I'm triggered. I'm triggered. You know what I mean? I got to go to work today. I'm triggered. What do you, what do you think is, I guess, like a suggestion for people to begin to recognize their actual triggers or stressors, right? For people to start to be accountable, right? Because I mean, in order for you to be accountable for your actions, you have to know what things trigger you or, stressors for you. So that way, you can avoid putting yourself in these positions that cause you to react in these ways that you may not want to react or that cause you to shut down.
Well, I think being attuned or more in tune with you and your body and what's happening with you. Like understanding if I talk to Susie and she starts that bull that she talk about all the time, I don't want to hear that stuff. It's going to set me off. Understanding that this friend is toxic for me and that relationship is something that may not be good in my life and I need to set boundaries with her is very important. There are so many things that trigger us for different reasons. We've all experienced big T and little t traumas. And, big T traumas are the more extensive traumas where we've been, things have happened to us. We've had severe loss or severe being abused in some way, or we've experienced those things. Little T traumas can be us watching other people traumatized or experiencing small things like a car accident or something like that may leave us feeling a certain way. Mm-hmm. So understanding that certain things will activate those traumas in our body is what's important for us in that moment.
Right.
And we might not even realize that we've been traumatized. Like when you think about, let's talk about COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We all were subjected to vicarious trauma. And what vicarious trauma is secondary trauma, where you watch something happen to someone else that's traumatizing and it affects you too. I feel like I was, because we're sitting at home watching all these people die, all these family members lose people in their lives, and we're trapped. We really can't go anywhere. We don't know what's going to happen when we go outside. I remember the first 6 months, I didn't leave my house. I didn't go to my porch. I didn't even go outside and see the sun at all. And that to me was traumatizing because I like to go outside. I like to be out of the house. Sitting in these four walls was really difficult. And then being stuck around my family 24/7 was hard.
Absolutely.
And then seeing all the scary things that were going on the news, not knowing what's going to happen, that was really traumatizing because I didn't know who was going to get it next. My mother is not here, my brother, my sister, so that kind of stuff can leave you. That was a trigger for a lot of people, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So understanding certain things, like another trigger could be a person that you've had struggle with in the past in your relationship. At one point, my mother was my trigger. She's not now. We've worked through it, but it could be any little thing. We've always been triggered, but since somebody mentioned the word,
Right.
now everybody's on top of it.
Yeah, it's trending. You look it up now, and everybody's triggered. Every single
Yes.
thing you see is
And I
people are
see that
triggered.
somebody says, and we don't know it's trauma based. That is true. A lot of times we don't know that it's trauma based. There are many reasons that we don't know it's trauma based. Some people suppress stuff and don't remember things that have happened in their lives. Some people just don't want to remember, or don't realize that they've been traumatized at all. So yes, sometimes things happen and we don't realize that they're trauma based.
And so you mentioned the setting of boundaries. So
Mm-hmm.
when people are starting out, let's just say we've been doing some work and we recognize things that trigger us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and now, we've established this pattern of bad behavior, right? We let
Right.
Susie vomit all of her drama on us every day. And every time we hang up with Susie, we're drained, right? Because Susie is just taking everything that we have to give for the moment. So
Yeah.
now we want to start, establishing boundaries for ourselves. And, of
Mm-hmm.
course, that's difficult because people are like, well, you've been letting me do it. You know what I mean? But now that you're speaking up and you're advocating for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
um, like, how does one go about doing that? How does one start to say enough or no more?
So as we know, personal boundaries are the limits and rules that we set for ourselves in relationships, right? So, developing healthy boundaries means just starting to say no, being okay with saying no to people, and okay with um, setting limits on what access people have to you. You have to come to terms with that with yourself, because a lot of times in setting boundaries, where we, um, how do I say, lose the ability to set those boundaries, is that we start feeling bad because we don't want to tell somebody no, or we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. But we have to, first of all, consider ourselves. And that's not being selfish at all. That's being helpful to everyone around you, because if you don't set those boundaries, you're not going to be able to be there to help anyone at all, correct?
Absolutely.
And so, setting healthy boundaries is being able to say no to others when you want, but you're also comfortable opening yourself up to intimacy and close relationships when you want to. Like people, some people go into it and they set rigid boundaries where they avoid relationships completely. They don't ask for help when they need it. They have very few close relationships. Like they lose friends, they isolate themselves. Very protective of personal information, which you have to be protective sometimes, but there's also places that you don't have to be so protective. Seem detached from everybody, even your significant other or your spouse. Keep others at a distance and avoid, just to avoid the possibility of rejection or hurting somebody's feelings and all. You just set that boundary and that's it. That's not a good boundary.
Right.
Then we have porous boundaries. Porous boundaries are where you overshare information. You have a significant issue with saying no. You're over involved in everybody's problems and everybody's business. You're dependent on the opinions of other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You accept abuse or disrespect from others. They say what they want to say to you. They talk to you all kinds of crazy, and you're okay with it. And you fear rejection. That's why you do that. That's people who have porous boundaries. And then there's the healthy boundaries. The healthy boundaries say that you value your own opinion. You
Right.
don't compromise your values for anybody else. You share personal information in an appropriate way. You don't over or undershare. You know personal wants and needs and can communicate them. So you know what you want. You're in tune with who you are, and you understand your needs. So you're able to communicate that appropriately. And then you accept when others say no to you too. That's a good boundary too. Being able to accept no from others without getting upset. So healthy boundaries is the way to go. It's hard, especially if you've lived a long time with these inappropriate boundaries, right?
Right.
But with everything, it takes time. It takes practice. You have to keep practicing it. Say you try to set a boundary today and you mess up. That's okay. That's okay. Start over tomorrow. It's a new day. We're going to do it differently. And maybe pull back the reins a little bit. If you go out with your friends 5 days a week and you want to stop doing that so much, take away one day at a time until you get to the limit that you have. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you have a friend where you're talking on the phone with them 6 hours a day and it's interfering with your family and you're having problems with your husband because they don't understand why you have to be on the phone with them all the time, sit down and determine what that looks like for you and your family and how you can work that in and set that boundary with that friend. Just have to really think about it. Most people have a mix of different boundary types.
Mm-hmm.
Someone could have a healthy boundary at work, porous boundaries in a romantic relationship, and a mix of all three with their family. So getting to having those healthy boundaries is not going to be an easy feat. That's one of those things that comes into play in therapy, where we would talk about that and set I would give you assignments to work on each week so that you can work towards getting to having those personal healthy boundaries.
Absolutely.
And, when you think about personal boundaries, there's physical boundaries, there's intellectual boundaries, emotional boundaries, sexual boundaries, material boundaries, time boundaries. I mean, there's boundaries that you can set on everything. But setting appropriate boundaries is very important to your peace of mind, I believe.
Absolutely. Somebody mentioned too, a big thing that people, and you said it too, accepting no for what it is. I don't think that people can handle no, period. Right? Because it's always, if someone asks, can I borrow money? We say, no, because I just paid, blah, 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 right? Like everybody gives you a reason for the no.
Yeah.
Versus no. Because anything else I say after that, it doesn't really matter because I said no.
No is a complete sentence, honey.
Right.
No comes with a period. It comes with an exclamation point. It comes with whatever you want to have after, but no is a complete sentence. Period.
Yeah. And like for myself, I experience the sentence but with a question mark. Right? Because I'm saying no, but like, am I really saying no? Mm-hmm. Am I negotiating this no? Like I said no. I didn't say maybe. So why is there a question mark at the end? So for me, I had to learn no. And I kept getting frustrated because people want the extension of that no, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I started feeling obligated to give that extension. So here I am, I'm the one worked up and frustrated because I'm trying to tell a whole story behind something that ended at no. So that was a big thing for me that I had to learn. And, even in my own family, they still have a hard time dealing with it because for years I've given this answer. And so now I'm like, no. They're like,
and
you're
going to get all kinds of statements when you start setting boundaries, everybody that's listening. You're going to get all kinds of things said about you. Oh, you being funny, or, she don't want, what's wrong with her? Or
right.
Why she acting like that? Or she's acting different.
She's brand new.
It'll take them time to adjust to it. But those people that are meant to be in your life will adjust to it, and they will be okay with it. Mm-hmm. Because this is about self-actualization. You have to be okay with you in order for you to be okay with anyone else.
Right.
Like you have people who want to be in these relationships and want to be married, and you ask them why, they can't even tell you the reasons.
Right.
They can't tell you anything about themselves, but they can tell you everything about everybody else. You have to know who you are, the things that you like. What is it that you really want in these relationships that you have? That will help you set the boundaries that you need. What is the relationship doing for you? Are your friends, the friends that you hang around, what are they bringing to the table for you? And what are you bringing to the table for them? Make sure, because life is too short. Time is too important for us to just waste it on anything. I believe in having a good time. I love laughter. Some would say I even try to be a comedian. But I believe that we have to take our time seriously, and we have to engage appropriately, even in our fun, even in everything that we do. And so taking consideration for yourself, myself, is very important first. Mm-hmm. And when you start doing that, everything else around you will start falling into place. It's not going to fall right away. It's going to be some curves and some bumps along the way, but things will start to fall in place, and you'll get that peace of mind that you're seeking.
Absolutely. I mean, and that goes back to trusting the process, because I think a lot of times we start to, advocate for ourselves, and we start to set these boundaries, but then that pushback that we get causes us to go back into our shell, right?
Exactly.
I try to say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I understand I did it yesterday, but that's not what I'm doing today. Right. And, people still try to push the limit. They try to get you to go backwards, because, that's where they are. And, when you're starting to set boundaries, you have to, again, be honest with yourself. What is the goal that you want from this? Because if the goal doesn't mean anything to you, then you're not going to stick with that boundary. If you're just doing it because it's trending, that's not going to work for you. Just because it's working for me, you know what I mean? And you see that I'm glowing and growing, right? Doesn't mean that you're going to be able to follow those same steps that I did and get those same results for yourself.
Just make sure that, the decisions that you make for yourself are for you, mm-hmm. and not for what someone else said that they're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
Because think about it. If you don't take care of yourself, all these people that you're trying to help, all these things that you're trying to do are not going to make any sense anyway. Think about it like when you ride an airplane, when they're explaining to you what you need to do, say when the masks fall down, they say, even if you have a child, you need to put your mask on first, because if you don't and something happens to you, then both of y'all die.
Exactly.
Right? So you have to help yourself first. Then you'll have the energy and the wherewithal to help the people around you and do the things that you need to do. So setting those boundaries, I believe, is very important.
Absolutely. Let's see. And you guys in the chat, remember, we are welcome to any questions that you guys may have along the way. So please feel free to add any comments or questions.
I've been seeing some really good comments. I can bet. And Anissa Pearson, she said, you have to want change in order to have change. And that is so true. That is so true. I have people that come for therapy, and once they get in and they realize all the work that they're going to have to do and everything that it entails, they realize they weren't ready for it. They're not ready yet. Yes, they need to do the things that they need to do to change in their life, but they're just not ready and capable to do that. And at that point, they usually back out. And it's not that they had a bad experience. It's just that it wasn't for them in that moment. And if we were to continue to try to push that and force them to change, it wouldn't work. Right. So you have to want it. You have to want the things to happen for you in order for them to happen. So you're correct.
Yeah, there was another comment from Wanda. Wanda said she had the hardest time setting boundaries because of guilt.
That's a big one. That's a big one. I experienced that because I always don't want to hurt people's feelings. I don't want to, I try to be polite, and I don't want to say anything to make anybody feel bad. I don't want to leave people feeling bad when I walk away. But that was something that I had to get over, because I realized I had to measure everybody's motives in the situations. Because if the person's motives are right with you, they're going to be okay with the decisions that you make to take care of you.
Right.
What's their motives in your relationship? That's a big factor too. Making sure, because if someone is truly there for you in the way that they're supposed to be, they might be a little perturbed by you changing things up in the middle of the game, but they will understand when you explain to them, I'm trying to do this so that I can balance my life and I can have the peace of mind that I need in order for you to still be in my life. So, thinking about it like that, looking at everybody's motives might help you with that piece.
Yeah, and I think a big thing too, as we start to set these boundaries and make these changes for ourselves, that we have to communicate those boundaries. Like, you don't have to tell people why you choose to do it, because that's your business, right? The why
Right.
you want to do this. But I think that when you, to make it not to make it easier, but I guess to smooth the transition from one
Right.
place to the other, you have to be able to communicate these new rules. I mean, it's no different than when new laws go into place, right? If if you live in a community and there's no stop sign here, but all of a sudden they put a stop sign here, chances are you're going to keep running that stop sign because you ain't never seen it there in the past 20 years, but here it is. And so that's why, when they put up new street lights, those lights get put up and they flash for a minute to just bring awareness that, hey, this is here now. And I think that we have to talk about, hey, there's going to be a change. The why is on you to discuss, but to tell your loved ones and to tell your friends, hey, I'm making this change. So I know that you're used to me being this way, but going forward, I'm working on not being this way. So that way, that gives people the ability to start to respect those boundaries. Because if they have no idea that there's this boundary is here, then they're going to constantly overstep it, which is going to then affect you, because now you're questioning, does this make sense for me? Should I do this? Do I need to cut this person off?
Yeah. Somebody had put in the chat, some people set boundaries for themselves but don't recognize other people's boundaries. Girl, you got one right there, because that is so true.
Right.
You have to, another thing is, when you're setting your boundaries, you have to keep in mind that other people have boundaries too, and you have to be mindful of theirs as well, because how fair is that?
Right.
And then when they set boundaries, you got to question them. Why? It's their boundary, just like I was talking about. It's their feelings. It's their boundaries. They are the owners of it. You don't have to know why. All you need to do is adhere to it.
Exactly. Exactly. And of course that goes back to being accountable as well, because you don't have to understand why a person has set this boundary for themselves, right?
Right.
You just have to respect the fact that they set the boundary for themselves.
That's right.
And if the way that person now chooses to govern themselves does not sit well with you, remove yourself, like, respectfully, right? You know what I mean? And if I don't know, like, how sometimes people have friends for years, right? And y'all have grown up a certain way. Y'all have gone from children to adults now. And there are some people who are very content and set in their ways from childhood. And there's always, the issue where people grow at different speeds. And it doesn't make one person a bad person just because they're here in this space and you're a little bit ahead or further behind, So I think that people need to also recognize that we grow at different speeds. And, there's a fine line in when you I guess, assert your boundary, don't condemn somebody else for not being there yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, just recognize you're in different places.
Relationships outgrow one another all the time.
Right.
Like, people outgrow each other all the time in relationships. Some people are friends, and like, I have friends that I've had since kindergarten, and I'm 51. So I have friends from kindergarten. And some of them I talk to regularly. Some of them I don't. I might not talk to them this whole year, but next year when I call them, we pick up right where we left off. And you have to be okay with that. I see them traveling with other people and hanging out. That don't bother me, because I didn't want to go anyway.
Right.
What I mean? But it's still, we have to respect everybody's boundaries in that way. And know, and you know what's important? Something just came into my mind. Thank you for the input. Knowing everybody's role in your life. Knowing who those friends are supposed to be, what their roles are. Like, I have friends, like I said, that I've had for years, and I know what each and every one of their roles is. I know I have one friend, we can hang around each other for a little bit, but then we got to go. We have to part ways. But I love her. You know what I mean? I know my limits with her, and she knows hers with me. There's one person I can hang around her all day, every day. So just knowing the roles that your friends have, because everybody's isn't going to be the same.
Right.
being able to have those boundaries with each one of them that you don't cross. So, yeah. Let's see, my journey is not for anyone to judge. Exactly. That's exactly right. People are always judging other people for stuff. How you gonna judge me?
Right.
Like, that's why I say therapy, should not be a place of judgment. It should be a place, if you're coming to get help and treatment, it's a place where you can express yourself and learn the new techniques that you need to learn to help you, put in your toolbox so you can pull them out and help you as you move forward. One of the biggest things that we have is our thinking. Our thinking. That's one of the biggest issues that we deal with because, a lot of times we get this narrow-minded way of thinking, this tunnel vision where we see something happen and we think this way about it. Mm-hmm. We're looking this way, but we're missing all the other reasons that this thing could have happened that are going on around us because we're so focused on our reason. You have to be not so rigid in your thinking. Not set thinking traps for yourself.
So you just mentioned a toolbox, or different tools that we have. Like, I always think of coping skills when I think of that. Can you talk about some of those different things that are useful?
Yeah. So, coping skills are things that you can put into place to help you when you are triggered. Like we talked about the word trigger. So, like for me, I am deathly afraid of heights. So my coping skill is I don't go up high. I keep myself on the ground. I know that I can't deal with that. But say, for instance, I'm in somewhere and I happen to look out the window and I'm up high. A coping skill that I might use would be to take some deep breaths, to count, take some deep breaths, hold it, and let it go, to free my mind from that, or to think about everything. I might use calming myself with using my 5 senses. What are your 5 senses? Taste, smell, touch, sight, hearing, right? Mm-hmm. So I may put some music on to help me calm myself when I get upset about something. If that doesn't work, then I might look at something, use my sight to look at something pretty on my phone or look at some pictures. Or I might have some good smelling lotion or something on my desk, which I always keep near me. I might, what have I said? I said, hear, listen to music, sight, look at pictures, smell, taste. I keep Jolly Ranchers in my purse all the time because that's my taste. They have different flavors. So I might stick my hand in the bag, grab one, not look at it, put it in and try to figure out what the flavor is. That's something that would take my mind off of whatever is stressing me out. Mm-hmm. And what was the other one?
Touch.
Having something that you like that's soft around that you can touch, or even this flower that's in my hair, just messing with that. Or I like to mess with my watch a lot, or different things like that. Having something that you can touch that would take your mind from it. Also, if you ever do touch this part of your ear, this is one of the most calming things there is. If you get upset, like right now, it's making me feel calm because I'm nervous about being here with you guys. But take your finger and rub it on the base of your ear. That is so calming. That's touch. Mm-hmm. Using those things. Or maybe I'll use I Spy. 5 things in the room. 5 red things, 2 black things, 3 green things. 4 red things, 3 green things, 2 blue things, 1 white thing. And try to figure them out and say them in my head. And nobody knows what you're doing, right, but you, in your mind. Nobody knows that you're upset. Nobody knows that something is going on. You're managing that on your own. Other coping skills would be calling someone and talking to them, hanging out with a friend, going for a walk. These are things that you do when you feel the anxiety that you experience, or even sadness, to pull you out of sadness. Stuff like that. So those are some examples of coping skills. I call it activating them. You activate your coping skills when you know that you start to feel yourself dealing with something that's altering your emotional state in that moment.
Yeah, I'm going to read some of the comments. I'm going to go a little bit backwards. Lady Blue said she goes from 0 to jail so fast, she bypasses calmness.
That's a a good one, girl, because that was me about 5 years ago. Okay. So one of the things that I would suggest for Lady Blue is, Lady Blue, are you in therapy right now? She is.
It's a slight delay, so.
Okay. Well, if she didn't, Lady Blue, one of the things that I would suggest to you is that you do try to find a therapist to talk to you and help you to learn some of those techniques. Some people come to therapy, you could have 1, 2, 3, 4 sessions, and that might be all you need to help you to learn how to deal with that. It doesn't mean that you're in therapy for your life, for the rest of your life. I always tell people, give me 4 sessions. And then after 4 sessions, if you feel like this isn't helpful for you, then we're good. I'll say, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So give me 4 sessions. But this, Lady Blue bringing that up is really something that brings me to think about brain spotting. Is that okay that we talk about that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I told you in the beginning, I have a private practice here in Columbus. And one of the things that I've done, COVID was very helpful in this because I didn't even know it existed. And while I'm online, I found this. There's a technique called brain spotting. Brain spotting is a therapy technique that's used to help in dealing with the trauma, the little T and big T traumas that we talked about earlier, and other issues that you might be dealing with. Like if you came to a therapy session and you just had a big issue where you got in an argument with somebody coming to the office and you were excited about that or still upset about that, we could work with that and help you to process that in a brain spotting session. But in brain spotting is a brain-body healing modality. They use intuition, uncertainty, attunement between the client and the therapist to help you to work through what's going on. So you and I will be in tune with each other. We look at the neocortex, which is the rational and thinking part of the brain, which is the front part of the brain. This is a sample brain that I have here. So the neocortex is the front part of the brain. And that's where talk therapy stops. Like when you're doing talk therapy, we're dealing with this part of the brain. And then you have the limbic part of the brain, which is our feeling brain. It's how we feel, how we respond to stuff, like how she says she goes from 0 to jail in no time at all. Well, that's her limbic responses to things. All right. And then there's the deeper part of the brain, is the reptilian brain, where it's our intellectual brain. And it's very important in the process of brain spotting, because when we have those traumas that cause her to go from 0 to jail, that's probably where that trauma is held. And when we engage in brain spotting, that's the part of the brain that we're activating while we're talking. And what we focus on in the brain spotting is the emotions that you're feeling when you're triggered by that thing. Whatever it is that's triggered you, I don't care if it was 20 years ago. And it's determining how you respond to things now, because we get caught in this loop. I call it a holding pattern. You know how airplanes, when they get ready to take off at the airport, they have to taxi until they are given the chance to go? Well, we're stuck in this loop, because if she goes from 0 to jail, when she gets upset, she didn't just start going from 0 to jail. It's been like that, right? And she's had that reaction to things for a long time. So she hasn't found anything to help her to get out of that and give her the go ahead to do something else. And with brain spotting, we would be able to help her to process that and help her to be more in tune with what's going on with her body, and help her to have, it'll change your responses to it. That's how I look at it. When I do because I do brain spotting myself, it'll change your responses to the triggers that you have with everything. So if you are interested in therapy, and there are other brain spotting therapists in the area, you can definitely look it up. I would definitely suggest that if you have trauma or you're experiencing things like that where you can't control your emotions, you have some deep things that are going on that you need to process, I would definitely encourage you to find you a brain spotting technician. It's not hypnotizing or anything like that. We're just trying to help you to be able to function better. Personally, my story, like I told you before, I deal with severe issues with claustrophobia. and heights. And so recently I wanted to take my daughter on a trip to Virginia Beach. Well, and we wanted to drive. So driving from Virginia Beach to here, you have to go through one of 3 tunnels underwater in order to get there. There's no way around it. I had to go through one of them. And if I took one route, I would go through 2. And so I was really scared. I was nervous about it. I mean, I was to the point of I wasn't sleeping. And I planned this trip a year ago, and I was stressing about it for the whole almost till it was time to go. So 3 weeks before going on the trip, I did a couple of brain spotting sessions, and I have a video I could show y'all. I went through those tunnels with no problem. Didn't bother me. I even could see where we would come out from the other tunnel as we were going around one of them, returning the curve to go down in the tunnel, and I could see where the other end was, and it did not bother me. And usually, I'm going to tell you, I was in the car with one of my friends, and she was going in a tunnel, just a parking garage downtown, and I was getting ready to jump out the car. That's how bad it is. I cannot do it. But I did brain spotting, and I did those tunnels like a boss. So
absolutely.
So, that is an option for you to help you guys in dealing with some of those triggers that you have. And for Lady Blue, dealing with going from 0 to jail, when you get upset and stuff like that, that's a perfect thing to bring to a therapist to help you in processing ways and learning how to compartmentalize that stuff and figure out appropriate ways for you to move forward and deal with it. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I've had my own experience with brain spotting. For me, initially, it was weird in the beginning. Just getting used to the process, because at that point I was just used to talk therapy, right? So the fact that we are just sitting here and we're looking at each other and I'm focusing on something, for me, I definitely was going through a stressful situation leading up to that session. And then, when it was presented to me, I was open, like, okay, sure, let's try this. But then, during the process, at first I'll admit I was not honest, because I was too busy trying to figure out, what are we doing? Like, what am I looking at? Because like I call it the red dot. So I'm like, what am I looking at? Why am I following this dot, right? I'm going to flip the camera for a second so they can see me talk. So, during the beginning, I'm just like, why am I looking at this dot? What's happening here, right? And so as I'm following it, back and forth across the screen, and I'm calming, but then there are points where I felt a lot of pressure, like almost so frustrated that I felt like I was going to throw up, like just in the pit of my stomach, just pressure. And we are not talking. There's not a word being said between me and my therapist. And every single time, this red dot, y'all, hit a certain spot, I was angry. Like, I was frustrated. I was hurt. And it was crazy, because once that dot would move elsewhere, I would feel like the pressure was lifted. And so during that session, for me, I learned that that's my, I don't know the exact word. Is it my trigger spot? Is it
that's your brain spot.
That's my brain spot. And so it was an interesting experience for me, because I also learned that where that dot fell each time is where I tend to drift off in an argument. So, and I can remember as early on, like, me and my mom did not have a good relationship growing up. We argued all the time. And I would just look past her, because, growing up, you can't not look at them when they're yelling at you, right? Because that's disrespectful. But I found this sweet spot that I could stare, that she thought I was looking at her, but I really wasn't. I was just kind of looking over here like, But that's the same area for me even now as an adult. When I get frustrated or, things like that, I find myself staring in this particular area, which is where my red dot kept landing, that was affecting me. But when I did that, it allowed me to deal with the emotions that I was feeling at the time. And, you know, I laughed, I cried, I screamed. You know, so much came out during this hour session of me following this red dot. Um, and I was physically drained afterwards, which my therapist did warn me that, you know, you're probably going to need to just go rest, take a nap. You know what I mean? Just focus on yourself a little bit. But when I tell you guys, that session unlocked some pretty amazing stuff from me. That's when I started painting. And you guys have seen the paintings that I did. But I mean, from that brain spotting session, um, I have been able to, I guess, like regulate myself more, if that makes sense. And I always give my therapist crap about it because she threatens me with it, and I'm like, no, I don't want the red dot. I'm good. But I joke around because it does work. It was very helpful to me. So just to give you guys another example, or you know, just my own experience with it, it was really good. But in the very beginning, I was not. It was new, so I didn't really understand it. But at the same time, once I got into it and I checked myself, like, what I got to lose? Let me try this. Let me follow this dot. It was beneficial. So definitely, you know, you guys look into it. I know we're all in different places in the world, but definitely do some research, look into it for anyone who is interested. I know a lot of comments in the chat said that you guys were kind of interested in that. So, you know, look it up, get some information on it. So I'm going to turn the camera back to you, Miss Laura.
Someone asked in the chat, will brain spotting help with anxiety? Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. It will help with anxiety, definitely. It's something, and it's not new. It's been around for years. It's just that now it's more prevalent, I believe. Especially in the BIPOC community. When I took my training, there were 144 BIPOC clinicians on there from all over the world. And there are trainings going on, I know, every quarter with 100 or more clinicians getting trained in brain spotting. I'm working now to become a trainer myself, to train others to do it. So, yeah, it's an awesome thing. I wish I had it years ago. If I had that years ago, my life, y'all might not be talking to me right now. My life might have taken a different turn. But, you know, like I said, everything happens when and how it's supposed to. One last thing I'll say about brain spotting is this, and I wrote this down during a training that I was talking to someone. I said, it says, when we say someone keeps doing the same negative things over and over again that produce negative responses and struggle to change the storyline and move in a different, more positive way, they are usually stuck in a specific frame. So when you see people who are, like I said, going in that pattern, they're stuck. They're stuck. You can't get past it. And even no matter how much you try, your reactions are going to be the same. Brain spotting goes straight to that area of your brain, and it helps to create a new way of seeing past, present, and future. It helps you to regulate the negativity, and it helps you to get to the core of the issue. And a lot of times, you know, the core is something that you probably haven't even thought about in years. It could be something that happened when you were a child. It could be something that happened when you were in high school. It could be something that happened last week, but it's something that you haven't thought about. And usually, you know, that's why you can't get to it, because you don't even know what it is. So, you know, it's a thought. Start with therapy first and then move into those things. But I do truly believe that it can be very helpful.
Someone, K-Wild asks, is there something specific that brings up suppressed memories in therapy?
It just, how do I, bringing up suppressment? I would say sometimes we can talk about things that trigger it. Some people might walk in and I might look like someone that was a part of a suppressed memory that you'll have, and it triggered it. For me, my suppressed memories came back after I got married. A lot of them were when I felt unprotected by my parents. And in my marriage, I felt protected. I felt covered. I felt, like he was there. He's going to be there for me no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, and in feeling that comfort and that balance with him, I guess it triggered something in the back of my brain, and all of these memories started flooding back for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it just depends on the situation and what's going on. Therapy could be, talking about certain things that you're feeling and going through. The questions that I know as a therapist would ask you, we would definitely look back. So that may trigger some suppressed memories. And brain spotting is definitely one that can trigger suppressed memories. There's different setups for brain spotting that we do, and one of them is parts, where we look at a part of you that wants to come into the session and talk to, and it's you're thinking, right? You're thinking about a part of you that you can remember that you would want to engage with. When I did it, my 10-year-old self came up, and she was sassy too. And she had a lot of information to offer in that session. So, there's certain things that we can do in therapy to help you in, getting to those memories.
KY also said, I think, piggybacking off of what she just said, was saying how, is there something in therapy as if your mind is trying to show you, but you're not ready to deal with?
Yeah, that happens a lot of times. And that's why some people quit therapy, because they don't want to deal with those things. But what they don't realize is those things is governing how they live their lives. And that's why they're unhappy, because they haven't dealt with them. They can't find the peace that they're looking for.
Yeah, and I think that's where the trust comes into play, because, I've had sessions where, like you said, 8-year-old Shantae shows up, and I'm like, girl, why you here? Like, we not ready to do this yet. Why you got to be here today? You know what I mean? And it is that, sometimes it is that experience where something happens, and it puts me back into, 8-year-old me. And if I'm not ready to address that, I think it's important to still acknowledge it, so that way we know it's here. One day we may want to get to it, but if I don't want to go through this today, I don't have to. But I think that, when you are with your therapist, you have to be able to acknowledge it, because your therapist should know when to push you and when to pull back. But if you're not telling them these feelings are here, then they might continue to push you. And that's when you're going to have like this unhealthy relationship with your therapist now, because they didn't realize, you know what I mean? Like, they just might not have realized something has come up, that even though we're not going to talk about it today, one day we should probably address it.
One of the most important things about therapy is honesty. You have to, if you want, like with anything, if you want help with something, you have to tell the truth about what's going on, because I can't help you with pieces that I don't know about. Right?
Right.
And that's something that the therapist definitely has to explain to the client in the beginning. And then it's about choice. And a lot of people fail at therapy, or what they consider fail at therapy, because of choices that are made in the situation, and not understanding the whole process, and not doing what they're supposed to do, their part. As a therapist, I always tell people, I'm here to challenge you. I'm not here to, yeah, we're going to laugh together. We're going to enjoy it, because I want this to be an enjoyable experience for you as much as possible. But there are days that you're not going to like me, because I'm going to challenge you, and that's what I'm here for. And then you go home, you do what you're supposed to do, get your homework done, and then you come back next week and we start over. I'll see you next week. But that's what we're here for. You don't want your therapist to be a yes man. You want somebody that's going to challenge you, so that you can work on these issues. Because me and my therapist, yesterday, I see her every Friday morning. She said, "Oh, I know you saying, Karen, don't start that shit today." But no, I wasn't saying that. I needed what she was saying.
Right.
She needed to get in order, and she did that.
Yeah. So the comment that Kay Wild said, As far as the suppressed memories, is it normal to just have flashes of it?
That's a symptom of PTSD. That's a symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. That's, the trauma. It shows that you've been traumatized when you start having flashes. That's a normal symptom of that. It's not normal to have that every day. Do the symptoms, do the flashes kind of throw you off and make you feel different than you're feeling? Does it affect your emotions and your feelings in that moment?
She said yes.
Yeah. We can I give you can she give you my information so we can talk a little bit off screen?
Yeah, I can definitely pass the information.
Okay. So please give me a call and let me know who you are and where you met me at, and we can definitely talk.
Yeah. She said in those situations that she tends to shake her head because she can't deal with it.
And I imagine that's very hard. Those are difficult. I mean, when you have to, and it seems real, like it feels like you're right in that moment, like it's happening right then and there a lot of times. So that can be a big struggle. I understand. So we definitely will talk about that.
So I know a big part of what we were talking about today. We've talked about the need to increase awareness in ourselves and others. Obviously, we were discussing stigmas because there's this big cloud over mental health, right? People don't want to talk about it. They're like, not me. I don't want to be judged. I don't, you know what I mean? And in the chat, a lot of people said that, they have a hard time opening up to people for that fear of judgment, right? Can we talk about like what are stigmas surrounding the body? I mean, it affects everyone, but it's a big problem in the BIPOC community.
A lot of people don't believe in therapy. I hear that like it's a belief system or something. Like they don't. I hear people say all the time, I don't believe in therapy. I don't believe that I need to go sit and talk to somebody and tell them all my problems and they're going to help me. I hear that all the time when people, say, you say go to different events or whatever. We're talking about what we do. You'll hear that in the background. Yes, I've been faced with a lot of different stigmas. What can you do to help me?
Right.
And all that kind of stuff. Or my family don't believe in therapy. Like I said before, what happens in this house stays in this house. If I say that word, everybody in the room probably understand what I'm saying, because I'm sure your parents said that to you. People believing that there has to be something wrong with you, or you're crazy if you go to therapy. Another one is being judged by other people if you go to therapy. People knowing my business and telling my business, that's a myth, because we cannot tell your business. You can sue us and take everything we got. And I work too hard to give anybody anything. I'm too cheap. Doing that. Just all of the things, they're not going to help me. And I feel like, especially in the community of therapists that I know, our objective is to help you. And if you're coming to us and we feel like we don't have the capability of giving you what you need, we will help you and send you to the people that we network with, because all of us specialize in different stuff. Like I specialize in trauma. I love it. I love working with trauma and dealing with those issues that people have, because that's my experience, right? I used to always wonder, God, why are you allowing these things to happen to me? Right. And just about every week, somebody sits before me that's been something similar to what I've gone through. So it puts a different spin on it for me. And so when we look at our network, it will help. It helps us to make sure that we link people with what they want and need. So it's very important to trust the process. We as professional therapists, and I can't speak for everyone, but the majority of us are here to help you, not judge you. And, with any profession, there's always that bad apple.
Right.
But for the most part, we are all here to help you. The circles that I sit in, the people, and I've dealt with white people, black people from all across the United States, across the world. and I hear the same thing. They are very passionate about helping you. I think, therapists and social workers, we're a special kind of person. A lot of people say something have to be wrong with us in order to be able to do this all the time like we do. And, you can say what you want to say. I love it. I love it. So please trust the process.
So, K-Wall said shame would fall under that category as far as like the guilt and the shame, right?
Yes.
And Wanda said she was ashamed of being exposed. Wait a minute. She was ashamed of exposing what she was going through.
And that's a normal feeling as well. Feeling like what you're going through is abnormal. I should be doing better. I should this or I should that. Stop shoulding yourself. Stop shoulding all over yourself, because should will cause a lot of people to still be living in terror and silence and hurting.
Right.
Nothing that you've done is going to make any therapist change or judge you differently, because we're here to help you. We understand that everybody goes through stuff, and probably what you're going through is not just your issue. There are probably a lot of other people dealing with it too. So if that, coming into therapy would definitely help you to work on that shame that you're feeling as well.
And I think for me, that raises a point for me when I was searching for my therapist, just like I do when I search for my doctor. I had specific things that I looked for, because in order for me to show up and be my true authentic self in front of this person, I needed to feel like we could relate. Not that I have anything against male doctors, right? But for me, it was important to have female doctors. Same thing with my therapist. It was important for me to come and sit here and not feel judged. Me personally, I couldn't sit and have that conversation with a man.
Yeah.
I couldn't sit and have that conversation, with someone that I didn't feel looked like me. Experience similar things. And it doesn't mean that, an African American female went through everything that I went through. But I felt more comfortable, because if I was going to open up and be my true authentic self, which is the whole purpose of me being here, I needed to set that criteria. And I think that some people feel uncomfortable doing that, because people think that, oh, does that make me racist, or does that make me this? No, it just makes you honest in saying, this is where my comfort level is. My whole life, I've grown up around strong Black women. So when I want to sit and have that conversation, I need to have that conversation with a strong Black woman, because it's what I know. It's where my comfort lies. And for me, some of my triggers have been males, like thinking of doctors. When I went through fertility treatment, I had a white male doctor who condemned me for wanting to get pregnant and I was not married. And, put me in a very bad space of judging myself. And so going forward, I could never have another gynecologist that was a man or, or white for that matter at that point. And it's not, it's not necessarily racially driven. It's just now I have this trauma surrounding this experience that I went through. And so when I searched for my doctor, she had to look like me.
Yeah.
And
well, I agree with that. I feel like that's another part of self-actualization. You're advocating for yourself. And if you want a Black therapist, it doesn't mean that you're a racist. It's just that you want someone that can relate. I know, and I tell, because I do, I host students. I host master's level students and bachelor's level students as well, and do their supervision for their internship. And when I talk to OSU, when I talk to Capital, when I talk to Case Western, when I talk to all the other schools that I get students from, I told them that my clients look like me. They come to me because I look like them. So that's something that any student that's coming to work with me is going to have to understand. And this is the community that I work with. And so I think having that makes us more susceptible to going because you have someone that you can relate to. We're not there to be your sister, your girlfriend, your friend, and all that kind of stuff, but it makes it adds a piece of comfort to the whole process. Like, my therapist is Black. I made sure when I look for a therapist, I look for a Black older female because that's what I needed. I needed someone that would kick my butt. Mm-hmm. I didn't need somebody my age that I could come alongside and kind of, I'm sure she would still challenge me, but my respect level is what it is, and I knew what I needed to work for me. So as you look for your therapist, make sure you consider yourself. That's why it's important for you to know yourself and know what you need and what you want in picking them, because you'll make a good choice when you do that. Absolutely. Look on, there's different websites that you can go through. Type therapist, just type in Google therapist in my area, and you can pull up Psychology Today. I'm on Psychology Today, and there's a lot of other therapists, and you get to see our picture, what we look like. They give you a little story about us and what we specialize in and all that kind of stuff, how long we've been in business, all that kind of stuff, all the insurances that we take, or if we take insurance at all, those kinds of things are on there so that you know that you're going to someone that you've chosen because of they have the qualities that you're looking for. Please don't just go to somebody just because, not even me. Look me up. Look up whoever you're going to go to so that you can get the person that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that takes some of the pressure off when you get there, because, before I met my therapist, I researched my therapist. For the simple fact that I needed that level of comfort. And I can remember my very first session. At first I was like, why is she talking about herself? Like, ain't this about me? I didn't come here to hear about her. But afterwards I understood the importance of it, because it broke down, I guess, my anxiety from just being here in this room. I got to know her and was able to feel comfortable in communicating. And so at that point, that just kind of opened the door, and I just began my sessions like, okay, this is great. And in other therapy sessions, my other sessions, like, they told me how they are or who they were on paper, right? And I think the difference with my current therapist is that she told me who she was as a person. And that, I think that's what made me so comfortable in the beginning, because, you have some therapists who just tell you who they are. I graduated from here. I went there, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, okay, that don't tell me nothing. You read some books. Great. Got it. But, me doing the research in the beginning, and then of course that introduction in the very beginning also, made things better. So someone just tried to join. I tried to click it. If you want to come back, I didn't see who it was, but if you want to join in the guest seat to ask a question or make a comment, you can. Go ahead, Miss Laura. Sorry.
No, I was just listening. I think that you made a valid point. Knowing the people that you're engaging with is very important. Like, it really is a big part of the whole process. I mean, this is your personal mental well-being that we're holding in our hands. And so being in a place that you're comfortable in is very important. Now, one thing I will say, please take us seriously, because we are true business owners. We are truly trained in what we're doing. The majority of us, I can only speak for the people that I'm around, right? Or what I've experienced, but we are serious business owners. This isn't playtime. I've had people come to my office and not take it as seriously as they would going to another doctor's office because I was Black. They thought they were coming in and we was going to be homegirls. That's not what this process is. I take your mental health seriously, and you're coming to me for a service. I'm going to give you that service to my best ability. Right. Please, as we support our sisters and our brothers that look like us, please give them the same respect that you would give your white brothers and sisters.
Absolutely. Let's see. So, we started this portion of the conversation discussing stigmas. Well, I think we already touched on that. You discussed certain stigmas that you've personally experienced. I know a common thing that I find myself hearing is that when I first, mentioned that I was going to therapy, someone asked me, well, does your therapist go to therapy? Like it somewhat discredited, the fact that, he or she is seeking help. That how can they help me when they're going to therapy themselves? Or, is your therapist married? Do your therapist have kids? Like, those sort of questions where if my therapist is divorced, is she not able to help me with my marriage?
Right.
Or if she does not have kids, how can she help you as a parent? Things like that. So I think that those are also stigmas because just because a person, your therapist may not have experienced the specific trauma or situation that you have, people think, well, how can they help me? Or vice versa. Your therapist may be in a toxic relationship. People are like, well, she going through it. How can she help you? And she ain't helped herself, or, things like that. So I think that those are things that also kind of hover over when people think about going to therapy, because they kind of focus on the wrong thing. Whereas because you are a therapist, you are trained to deal with situations that you may not have experienced. Like you're still trained to be able to help people through these situations, even though you may not directly have experienced that situation. There are feelings tied to that situation. So you're trained to help us process those emotions and those feelings, right? I mean,
yeah. And I think what people need to remember is that therapists are human beings too. Before I started training and working in this field, I was in therapy, and I went to a couple of people that didn't look like me, and they seemed so far removed. Like I felt like I was sitting on the other side of a desk from them, but I felt like I was sitting miles away from them because they didn't seem real. They didn't seem like they had any problems. They didn't seem, not that you need to know that your therapist is struggling with stuff. Like your therapist shouldn't be telling you all of their personal business, but just to know that they're human. I say that I'm going to therapy too because I want you to know that I'm practicing what I preach to you. I'm learning my boundaries. I'm learning my own coping strategies. I'm learning, I do homework just like you do. I'm still working just like you are. We are human, all humans being, not human beings, but humans being.
right.
Because we're in this world living together. And I'm not superhuman just because I have a therapy degree. I'm not immune to life tragedies just because I have a therapy degree. I'm not immune to my children acting crazy or my marriage, something going wrong in my marriage, or losing family members, or my mama gets, I'm not immune to any of those things because I'm a therapist. Life still happens for me. So just because I'm sitting here working this out with you doesn't mean that I might not help to work out those things in my life as well. And it doesn't negate the training that I've had to do what I need to do with you. Because sometimes when you're in stuff, it's hard for you to see the outside or the end of it. You have to have people help you. And I'm a realist. I believe in being realistic. I am flawed, just like everybody else. So, for someone to say that, are they really, looking at it from the right lens? Right. Or are they being judgmental?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where it's important to, when you do discuss that you're going to therapy, discussing that in a safe setting, because you will have people who will try to judge you. But as long as the purpose for you going, you know what I mean? Like as long as you understand the reason behind you going and you're truthful in that, I think it makes it a little easier. Because like when people were asking me those comments, I wasn't defensive. I completely understood their ignorance with it because they have no respect for it. And you can't not necessarily respect, but like you can't understand what you don't respect.
Right. Exactly.
And I had to learn that's an issue, right? Like that's my favorite thing now. That's an issue. That's not an it's me. That's your issue. I'm gonna do this for me, and that's back to my boundary. This is what I'm going to do. Like, even getting my family to understand. Initially, when I was going to therapy, it was in-house. Like, I would go see my therapist. And then COVID happened. And so then I started seeing my therapist virtually. So we're all trapped in the house. So now I had to find a safe space within the house where I could still talk. And sometimes my sessions were in my car. I would get in my car, lock the doors. You know, my family would still kind of push that boundary. My son would come out and knock on the window. And I'm like, Lord Jesus, like, get this boy, take this child. So I would like drive away or, you know, something like that. But getting myself conditioned to understand that they don't understand it. And instead of trying to force my family to understand it, I had to then say, they don't necessarily have to understand it. They just have to understand that it's happening.
Right.
And I had a hard time with that, you know, in the beginning. So now I just get for them to understand that you don't have to understand therapy. You don't have to respect you don't have to do any of that. But you have to respect my desire to go through therapy. And like, that's my boundary. And you know what I mean? Like, that's a hard line for me. You have to respect it. Just like when you were talking about feelings. You just like, you can't tell me my feelings. You just have to acknowledge that they are my feelings. Whether you intentionally, whether what you did intentionally, you know, did it, because most of the time we unintentionally hurt people. You know what I mean? And so when they're telling us that we hurt them, the argument shouldn't be, well, I didn't mean to do it, or that's not what I meant to do. Okay, I understand that's not what you meant to do, but you did it. So understand that this is how I feel about it, and let's move on.
Yeah.
So,
well, I truly enjoy hearing that you set those boundaries, because that's important when you're doing this. Even if you don't have the support of others, you know, setting your boundaries and sticking with your guns is what's going to make your journey be fruitful for you, because you know what you need and you're truthful to who you are, and you're not allowing their negativity, their stigmas to change your process. So I applaud you for that. I really do. More of us need to do that. So we talked about coping strategies. That and I want to backtrack on that a little bit. I had mentioned this before, but I do a lot of journaling. I believe in writing down stuff. Like when I get really frustrated and I can't express my feelings to other people, sometimes I write poetry. So I have a poetry book that I'm working on because it comes out in riddles. And it really, and I didn't realize that's what it was until I went back and looked at it, because I always title them, you know, and so I have that done. And then I found this little journal, and yes, it says what you think it says. Let that shit go. That's the name of the journal. It's a journal for leaving your bullshit behind and creating a happy life. I love it. I've been writing in this journal for several weeks now, and it's really been helping me to work through some stuff. Then there's another one. There's a self-love workbook for women. And I found these on Amazon. Self-love workbook for women. This is a really good one as well. And it has a lot of stuff in it. I don't do this one every day. I do this one weekly. But these are things that I'm working on, and it really talks about a lot of stuff. And then there's also a book on Amazon that you can get. I wrote it down. It is The Complete Woman Weekly Bible Study Volume 1. And it's a journal, basically. It says Bible Study Journal. It has some scripture and different things like that. And it's only $8.99. And it's on Amazon as well. And it's a really good journal. Good journal to use. So I would definitely look those up, ladies, if you can. These are really good. They've been very helpful in me being able to get rid of that stuff. Writing it down. And it's something about seeing it in black and white. Like seeing it in black and white does something different. And you've gotten it out. You've been able to push it out. And you didn't have to tell anybody else. It's just between you and your paper.
So
and your
what about nobody else knowing your business. Yes, ma'am. Because she found herself going back and reading them and putting herself in a bad place. What suggestion would you have for that?
If that's an issue for you, one of the things that you can do is get rid of it. You can write it and throw it away, tear it up, write it down, read it in that moment if you want to. You don't even have to read it, just write it, get it out. And there's this thing that some people do, they burn it. Burn that paper up. That means, excuse my French, I hope I'm not offending nobody, but that means that bitch can't come back no more.
Amen. Absolutely.
You burnt that thought up. It's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Burn that thought up.
So what are some ways that, us in the community, like we're not therapists, right? Like you are, we're not. But what are some ways that, someone like me, right, could help raise awareness surrounding mental health?
Become involved. See what things are going on promoting mental health. And just get involved in those situations. Promote it on your webpage. You are an influencer. Talk about it more. Help people to understand your journey if you like. That's up to you. You don't have to tell your whole personal journey, but, advocating is very important with your own family, with your own children, your own mother, father, whoever, but looking at agencies like mine and supporting us in the things that we're trying to do and getting the word out about places that are working to help our community.
KY said about the reporting, so she can't tell you what's in the trunk, huh?
Girl, you don't know what's in
mine. So I try to do a little bit of research surrounding it because, like we said, July is National Minority Mental Health Month. So I've been reading different articles and things, and of course, I'm not going to be that person to be like, "Well, I seen it on the internet." But at the same time, just trying to make myself more aware of things for my own personal journey, for the sake of my family, and then of course taking it further. Like you said, I am an influencer. I do have this platform, so I want to raise awareness and just get people to talk about it. Like we're talking about everything else, like let's talk about it, because I think that mental health is the thing that is probably swept under the rug the most. Like we will talk about everything else when it comes to politics and who's sleeping with who, but we do not want to talk about mental health issues. Right. And I read something that said 1 out of 5 people have or will have a mental illness at some point.
Yep. And that's true. 1 in 4 adults, 26% suffer from diagnosis of both mental disorders in a given year. And I even, tried to be prepared with some statistics. I didn't know what your questions were going to be, but God is able. But I found this thing, and it was talking about some adult data for 2022. Mm-hmm. And it talks about the states that are ranked 1 through 10 have the ranking of the states with the lower prevalence of mental health and higher rates of access to care. Because when people have higher access to care, the problems that they continue to have are going to be less, right? Right. Well, in the top 10, we have New Jersey's number 1, Wisconsin's number 2, then Massachusetts, Connecticut is 4, New York, surprisingly, is 5, Minnesota 6, Hawaii 7, Pennsylvania 8, Maryland is 9. Y'all want to guess where Ohio is?
25.
36. Ohio is number 36 in the 50 states of having access to care.
And so then do the numbers change because when we look at that,
yeah, they change. They vary from, year to year and time to time. But right now, this criteria is the 7 measures that make up the adult ranking for adults with any mental health illness, adults with substance use disorder in the past year, adults in serious thoughts of suicide, adults with who didn't receive treatment, reporting their unmet needs, people that were underinsured, adults with cognitive disability who could not see a doctor due to cost. So all of that stuff is included in there. Ohio's number 36. So we really need to work to bring more awareness to these problems. And think about our children. Like I looked up the children too. 1 in 6 children, 2 to 10, have mental health issues. 2 to 10. 11 to 16 is 1 in 6, and then 17 to 22 is 1 in 5. 49%. 49% children.
And so I imagine that those numbers vary even more when we start to think about the BIPOC community, because we have even less access to these services.
Yep, and when you put other factors into play, like I'm doing my dissertation is on the role social work plays in children aging out of foster care and all the disparities that they face. Mm-hmm. And the statistics are so high for so many different. And mental health is definitely the top issue.
So let me do a time check, because I definitely want to be respectful of everyone's time. We are approaching 3:00. I do want to leave a little bit of time for questions, if you're okay with just being a few minutes over, if anybody has any questions. One question that I have, just to kind of close things out a little bit, would be, what could we say to someone that we think may be struggling? Like, for example, for me being an influencer and doing Self-Care Saturday, people reach out to me, telling me, the self-care today was great. I needed that. And, they may tell me a little bit of their story or things like that. But if again, not attempting to be a therapist at all, but like, if I can realize, this person that I deal with on a regular on social media is not themselves. You know what I mean? Because you can see patterns in people, whether you're physically there or not. You can see, people's posts going from happy to sad to non-existent, or people showing up in the lives and then not being there. So like, you can tell kind of people's patterns when things aren't normal. Or people show up in the chat and they're really erratic. Like, why are they acting like that? Is she drunk? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can pick up things. What would be something that, we could say to someone that we see maybe struggling with something?
First of all, validate their feelings and tell them it's okay to not be okay. Mm-hmm. Everybody has these times that they're going through, and it's okay to reach out to talk to someone. Express the importance of that to them. And talk about your experience with it if you're okay with that. I mean, I assume that you are, because you talk about now, but talk about the non-judgmental factor, because that's one thing that people worry about. Dispel the stigmas.
Right.
Dispel those stigmas to them so they feel comfortable enough to try it, and tell them, just because you try it don't mean you have to do it forever. You can just try it out, and if it doesn't work for you, then you can walk away from it, but get them in the door.
Absolutely. Persephone asked for you to see the books again, but I said that I could get photos of the books and pull up the links and post that for them. Okay. So if you could just send me like a picture of the book, then I can pull that up and post the links for them.
I'll do that.
Now, because everyone here is from different locations, like everyone here is not from Ohio. As a therapist, I don't know if someone was interested in trying to connect with you, do they have to be in Ohio, or are you able to help others that are outside of the state?
Yeah, I provide telehealth services to other people in other states. The only thing is I may not be paneled with their insurance, so they may end up having to pay out of pocket.
Okay.
So but I do have a sliding fee scale, and I do work with people with that.
Okay. And so then afterwards, like, I can get your information to pass to them if they want, or if you can also comment in the chat, because I don't want people to feel like they have to go through me to connect to you. But if you could comment in the chat, if anybody is interested in connecting with her directly, you do not have to go through me. But if you do reach out to me, I can provide her information. Or like I said, you can contact her directly. We are going to help Miss Laura get to 1K so she can begin to do things on this platform herself as well. But you guys are more than welcome to follow her and reach out to her as well. it won't let you put like personal info, like your phone number or anything in the chat. It's going to mute that. But I mean, if you can just comment period, then they can follow you and friend you, and then you guys can communicate in the DMs.
Yeah, I've been commenting as we've been going along.
Okay.
I put my website on there. I hope will it mute that?
Yeah, it's going to mute that.
Okay.
I can do a post afterwards.
Okay.
And then I can put the information in a post. So I'll just have you text me like the information that you want, or text me like a business card or something, and then I'll make a post and attach that, because yeah, it's going to filter out any texts, phone numbers, like all that pertinent info. It's not popping up on the screen for me, but could you just put like some emojis or something in the chat, so then that way you'll show up again? Because I think the things that you might have been saying might have gotten muted out, and it'll look like it showed up to you, but we don't see it at all.
Okay, gotcha.
And so, you guys, today I will make sure I make a post, and I will tag her as well. And then that way you guys can feel free to reach out to her directly with questions, anything that you want to follow up on, absolutely reach out to her. I am so grateful for you being here and doing this. Like, I think that this was such a good conversation.
Anytime.
Don't say that, because we'll have you back regularly for our self-care.
Okay. I don't mind. I have printed out these self-care morning affirmations. I believe in affirmations. I do this mirror project with my clients where I give them a mirror, and then they have to decorate it with their affirmations on the mirror, and I tell them they have to get a purse, because Miss Mirror needs to travel with them everywhere they go. And they have the mirror, and they need to 3 times a day for 3 minutes stare in that mirror and say those affirmations. Now, to get good, sometimes in the morning they have to stand naked in the mirror and say the affirmations, because we want you to appreciate the whole you, right? But like some of the affirmations is I give myself permission to heal. I allow myself to give and receive love. I'm capable of unconditional love. My past may be ugly, but I'm still beautiful. I trust that everything in my life is unfolding perfectly. I'm willing to be at peace with myself and everyone. I'm healthy, I'm happy, and I'm radiant. I love and care for my body, and it cares for me. So those are just samples of them, but I have like 3 of these, and I can share these with you too, Shantae,
Okay. And I'm going to turn the camera to me. I'm going to show you something, because it's so funny that you said that. So usually on Self Care Club, we start with these, and we flood the chat. And then, guys in the chat, please do this. We go through our Self Care Club cards, and the backs of them, when they order them, are blank, and they get to handwrite their own affirmations. Let me flip this. Okay. So when we start ours, we usually go through, and I'll say, I deserve. And everybody will kind of go through the chat with me. I have the power to achieve my goals. And you'll notice in the chat, everybody will start to throw their affirmations up. I will not give up.
Okay.
I am more than enough. I am worthy. I am grateful. I am strong. I am doing my best. This is a big one for me. Hold on, guys, my screen is being weird here. Okay. I am wiser. I am important. I will be uncontrollably happy. I've got this.
You've got this.
I've got this. My future is bright. I surround myself with peace and pleasant emotions. I will make it. I am beautiful. My past does not define who I am today. I love myself. Talented I am. All is well in my world. I am at home in my body. I am valuable. I accept and love myself. I am not too old to have success. My tension is melting away. I am calm and at ease. I deserve all that is good. I make the decisions for myself. I am reclaiming my power. I am trying. Anyone who loves me, I will allow them to. So we usually start or end our session with that. And then I created these cards for us to have, similar to like you said. You can throw these in your bag. I set one on my desk at work because when I'm in the office, it's a sense of stress for me. And so having these cards right there, and I can just kind of pull it out and remind myself. It's a, it's kind of my coping. So yeah, that's kind of what we do around here, and we definitely flood the chat with affirmations, speaking positively over each other, and just reminding people that Self Care Club is designed to be a safe space for everybody. Um, but yeah, so that's my contribution. I use TikTok as um, kind of a decompressing from the day. But I understand that social media can be quite toxic sometimes. And me having the self care club here is my way of creating, the positive space for me and those who are similar. So,
well, I think you've created an amazing thing.
thank you.
We do some similar things. I haven't invited other people in yet because I can't do that yet on my page. But I have what we call Dear Me Diary.
I love it.
Where I give my little quotes for Dear Me. But yeah, I think that having all of these things on there is what's going to bring the awareness that we're talking about. So it's so important that you're doing this, Shantae. And like I said before, I really, really appreciate you and your inclusion in this process.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you. I'm sorry we ran a little bit over because again, I respect your boundaries. I respect your time, as well as everyone for joining us and hanging out today. So we are going to do more. Yeah, are you okay with us posting the live today on YouTube?
Yes, that's fine. No problem at all.
I will.
Can you tag us in it so we can see it too?
I absolutely can.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there are. I will say before I post on YouTube, the comments will not show because obviously the recording doesn't show there, so the comments won't be there. You guys will get the conversation. And respectfully, there's a section that I may omit just for the privacy of certain people. But other than that, I will, I will get it uploaded as soon as I can for you guys. I will definitely tag you. And hopefully, I anticipate us doing more of this. And, I look forward to your page growing so that way you can give us more
Well, I told you, anything you need, just let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you so, so much. Thank you guys for being here today. And
thanks to your community for coming out. I really appreciate you guys and your participation.
Thank you, everybody. Bye, guys. Love you guys.